Um, I wanted to do a territory acknowledgement. Metchosin is located on the traditional territory of the Scianu Beecher Bay First Nation. And where we are located is an area, if you've been here, you'll know it's rich in resources and is also shared with the neighboring communities of Suk and the Lekwungen peoples. We acknowledge and are so thankful to the Scianu Beecher Bay First Nation for allowing us to live, work, play, and create art and programs on their lands. And we also give thanks to all the ancestors, the supernatural ones, hereditary leaders and matriarchs, and the creatures, big and small, for looking after this rich land and the resources and cultural teachings of it. I'm going to quickly just tell you, in case you don't know who ArtPod is, Metchosin ArtPod is an art collective of 11 local regional artists founded in spring 2019. So we just turned 3. We are located in the old Metchosin schoolhouse in downtown Metchosin, adjacent to the corner store. And we're open Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays from 11 to 4. And then, drum roll, who is Diana Smith? Well, Diana Smith is the driving force behind ArtPod's formation 3 years ago, and she continues to steer our boat as chair of our board. She has been making art in one form or another for several decades. Her main interest is abstraction. She studied ceramics at Emily Carr University and art and culture at Simon Fraser University, and she loved every minute of that. Diana and her partner retired to Metchosin several years ago and are deeply committed community members in the areas of environment, social justice, and art. Diana, I feel like I'm preaching to the choir, she's a deep thinker, and you will shortly hear evidence of that. She always provides pieces which are both thoughtful and thought-provoking. She works in clay, encaustic, and more recently cold wax. This series of work is called Abstract the News, and has been in the making for over 3 years now. And now I'll turn things over to Diana, who can unmute herself.
Okay, great. Thank you. Hello, it was so wonderful to see everybody, and some people I don't know, people I know, and I saw Melanie Kahn, who I didn't, hello Melanie, I mean, people I had no idea that they would be here, so that's really neat. I used to, in a past life, I used to be a reporter, and I went to Langara for journalism school. One of the things they drill into you is that in the first paragraph, you say who, what, where, when, why, and how about whatever you're talking about or writing about. So I'm going to just start with that, with where. And I wanted to do a segue from the land acknowledgement, because whenever somebody does a land acknowledgement, as a person that lives on land, as a settler, I'm living on stolen land, basically. So I always feel a bit unsettled. And abstract art, one of the things I'm going to be talking about is how it can unsettle us, and art in general can unsettle us. And this is really a good thing. I'm going to introduce Jackie in a minute. It's so wonderful that you're here. But I just want to mention a few people who've just been helping me select the work, give me feedback on the work, have conversations with. There's Gail, Margot, Lorna, Jenny, Jen, Tara, Deirdre, people in the guest book that put just these lovely things in there. It's really helpful. It just gives me a boost when you do these things that you think might be weird. It's really nice when you get some feedback from people who get it. What I'm going to be doing is I'm exploring abstraction, mostly in art, and the powers and the puzzle. That's what I called it, because for so many people, abstraction is a puzzle. It's a puzzle, like it's opaque. We don't know what it is or how to make sense of it. And I also know, I feel like that about a lot of work that I see, but I also feel the power of it, and the effect that it can have on me. which I just love. And so I want to share that. When is during subtext, as I said, there's 25 guest artists in the show, besides the work I have and besides ArtPod people. And the theme is all how text and art can be put together, how it can incorporate together. And how I'm going to do it is an illustrated, because it's all about visual art, guided talk and conversation. And because like Zoom is so disembodied, it's so hard, even though I see people, I'm in a room by myself. So I asked Jackie Larkin, who lives in Metchosin. Jackie's a fantastic, she's a friend. She's been an activist since she was born, I think. And she's a very skilled facilitator. And I just thought, if we can have a conversation as we go through it, and she's going to help us me not get lost, keep me on track. If there's comments or whatever, she'll just take care of everything, basically hold my hand as we go through this. And I think if I'm relaxed, you'll be more relaxed. So I figure it will be more enjoyable, because it is, I've been cutting so much out, but it's still, 50 minutes or something like that. So it does take a little bit of time to get through. So thank you, Jackie, for being here.
You're very welcome. It's a pleasure. It's a real pleasure. Diana always has very challenging and interesting things to say. So I'm sure she's going to float through this very easily, but I'll do my best to kind of keep it, back and forth a little bit. And when we get to the question time, I'll try to moderate that part of it. So
thank you. I'll try. So I'm just going to share my screen. So hopefully, and I've done this, I've put everything on sort of towards the side, because on my screen, people are on the right-hand side, and I don't want to block hopefully none of the images are blocked. So this is a talk about the power and the puzzle of abstraction. And the puzzle, as I said a little while ago, it's what mystifies people about it. People come to it and they, I want to enjoy it, and I just don't know what it means. So it's just to try and make a little bit more sense. So how I'm going to do it is, there's 3 ways of looking at abstract art or abstraction. Then I'm going to talk about 3 powers, or 3 ways abstract art can affect us. And then I'm going to talk about abstract the news, which is an example of how I've used abstraction. And, hopefully some of the things I've talked about ahead of time will fit. You'll see how they're illustrated in what I was working on. So a conventional meaning of abstraction, abstract art, is it's non-representational, it's non-objective, it's non-pictorial. And I'm just going to show you this is Denise Thomasos. She was a Canadian painter, and Karen, who is here, her and I went to, she had a show in the Art Gallery of Victoria a little while ago. Really impressive. And this is a piece of hers. So the conventional meaning of abstract art is what it's not. It's not representational. You can't say, it looks like this, that, or the other. It doesn't refer to anything. And just so you know, it's not a new thing. This is some abstract art that was found in the Blombas cave in South Africa, 100,000 to 700,000 years before the Common Era. So abstract art, things that don't look like something else, is not new, basically. And here's just a couple of definitions. Abstract, this is the word, means existing in thought or as an idea, but not having a physical or concrete existence. Abstract art, used to refer to a type of painting, drawing, or sculpture that uses shapes, lines, and color in a way that does not try to represent the appearance of people or things. And I've underlined the 2 nots, because it's all telling you what it's not, but it's not telling you what it is, which is, I think, one way why people have such a hard time if people don't say what it is. They just say what it isn't. So that's the conventional way of thinking about abstract art. And I'm going to talk about another way of this. And I've got 4 slides here, and I'm doing this at the beginning because this is the sort of the trickier part. And it's a different way of looking at reality. I think abstract art is. So for instance, this is the Necker cube. And probably a lot of you have seen either this or you've seen things like it. And it's an optical illusion. You can look at that 2 completely different ways. And if you look at it softly, if you grit your eyes, you won't see it. But if you look at it softly, it changes from one kind of perception to another. And I'll just show you the solution to it, even though it's not a spoiler, because even if you do this tomorrow, if I do it tomorrow, it's still hard to see the 2 realities. But there's 2 ways of seeing this, the same thing. One way is you're looking at it from the left, and the other way on the right is that you're sort of underneath it, coming in from the right. But the point here is that the reality doesn't change. It's our brain that switches. So we know, oh, we can see reality in different ways. And this is just something I got out of the paper this week. It's the person is saying, oh, dinner's here, and it came with a side order of pizza. And humor, a lot of humor relies on we have a very predictable way of looking at things and thinking about things. And the reason humor is funny is because we're seeing it now, this comic, from the point of view of the vampire, because they're seeing dinner as the delivery person rather than the pizza. So it's the cartoonist is relying on us having a predictable and familiar way of looking at things and showing us a different way of looking at everything. So just hold all these in your head. And so abstraction is an alternative way of looking and seeing reality. This is not abstract. This is, it's a painting by Audrey Flack. She did it in 1973. It's acrylic on canvas. And it's in the category called photorealism. So like she probably had a photograph that she painted this from. It's very realistic. So this is, a typical, I tried to find something that was very realistic. This looks like Crayola's crayons. So then what abstract isn't, abstraction is non-representational. It doesn't look like anything that you know. So here's an example. For instance, this is Sam Locke. Love this artist. And the words there, I don't know if you can see them. It says the world we live in. So this would be considered abstract because it doesn't look like anything that you recognize. But what this is, it's actually a torn page from a book. The book is called The World We Live In. I actually Googled it. It's a 1955, it's a science book for young readers. So another way of looking at that is very real. I mean, in some ways it's more real than Crayola's because it's a real page from a book. There's crayons on there, there's shapes, but one way of looking at it is it's very real. Now I'm going to show you now. A lot of you will recognize this, not everybody, but some of you will. And it's part of a painting by René Magritte. It's over 100 years old. It was painted in 1919. And if you showed this to anybody, they'd say, well, I'd say, what is it? They say, well, it's a pipe. And then you say, well, what is it really? Well, okay, it's a painting of a pipe. And if you drill down even more, it's like brown, black, white, yellow oil paint on canvas. But the kicker here, which some of you know, is that this is the whole painting, and it says this is not a pipe. So when I saw this years ago, I mean, it won't come across now unless you have the same kind of experience I had, but it was like, what he's saying is the word, those scratchy little lines down on the right, pipe, is not the same thing as the image. The image and the word are not the same thing. It's just the way we'll go out in the world and we'll see a tree and we'll just say tree. And they're seamlessly attached to each other. And if you can pull those apart and see that there's actually a gap, it's a way to see reality a little bit differently. And when I wanted to put this in here, and I just Googled, this is not a pipe, and up this came. But then I found out what the real title was that I forgot. And it's called The Treachery of Images. Because what he's saying is the word and the object are not the same thing. We just put them together so seamlessly in our brain. And that just programs us to see things a certain way. So then we can't see things a different way. And this is the fourth one. So this is just a little bit of homework. This is a painting. Again, not abstract. It's called Chesterman's Beach Sunrise. It's acrylic on canvas, and it's by Gail Johnson. I think she's, I don't know her, so I thought it was a very nice painting. She's on Vancouver Island, I think. So what you need to do, this is your homework. If you're a morning person, go and watch a sunrise. And if you're not, go and watch a sunset. But close your eyes and imagine that you're on this huge sphere that's actually hurtling through space at 490,000 miles an hour. And at the same time, the sphere that you're standing on is spinning around at 100,000 miles per hour. And you'll realize that, like, the sun isn't moving. The sun, it says sunrise. It looks like the sun is rising, but it's not. We're just given a bill of goods, basically, that we're on a moving planet. Now, we all know that, but we still call it a sunrise or a sunset. And it's a way, if you think about that differently, you change your point of view. And it's just really useful. All the things that I've shown you, the Necker cube, the comics, the abstract painting that's a different kind of reality, the pipe, the word and the pipe that you can separate and see it as two different things. It's all ways that we're training our brain to see things differently, in my opinion. And that's what when you look at abstract art, it's a way of looking at something that's unfamiliar and just trying to see what it is instead of what it isn't. And there's another, I called it a bonus opportunity. You might be somebody that calls yourself they instead of he or she. But if you know somebody that, well, even if you don't, but if you call a person they instead of he or she, as some people are asking us to do, it's another way of changing our brain. Like sometimes when there's Ivan Coyote, they are a storyteller and writer in Vancouver. And sometimes I stumble over and I make a mistake and I say he or she instead of they, which is what they prefer. But every time I do that, I am training my brain. It's like going to the brain gym. And I'm going to be I'm going to have the opportunity to see reality a little broader than I usually do. Because, we're all very programmed. We have an object and we call it, we label it and say what it is. And then we have a judgment and assumptions. So this second way of seeing abstraction to me is a different way of looking at reality. So instead of saying what it isn't, it's not objective. It is a different way of something being real. So I hope that
Diana, I am going to ask you a little bit of a question here, if I can.
Yes, good.
So you in this second way, you talk about that different way of seeing, giving you a broader view of reality. So the question is more, could you talk about that a little bit more? Like what is the value of that to you, that broader view? What is the gift of that?
Oh boy. I'm going to make a bit of a leap. Hannah Arendt is was a German political philosopher, and she said she was and also a Holocaust survivor, and she said and so she was so against, her campaign in life would be to be against totalitarianism, and she said the two things that you can do that are so important is, first of all, to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. So all these things that I've talked about, it's like the comics, it's always putting yourself in somebody else's shoes. And the other thing is to think for yourself. So here we're told this is a sunrise. Well, it's actually not. The sun is not rising. Now, I know we all know that is obvious, but we forget that the sun isn't rising, even though it looks like it. So seeing things differently, seeing a different reality, we'll make less assumptions, we'll be less discriminatory in the world. I mean, we'll enjoy abstract art more, because that's giving us something else. This is not a tree, it's not a still life, it is what it is right in front of you. And if you can enjoy what's in front of you without labeling it all the time, saying, oh, it's this, and if there's you've heard of cognitive dissonance, if there's a difference between what you see and what you think it should be like, you'll feel very unsettled. But this is good.
Thank you. Yeah, it is good.
Does this make some kind of sense?
Does to me. I was thinking that maybe, therefore, in the case of the Chesterman's Beach, we were, in terms of putting yourself in another's shoes, in this case, we were going to put ourselves in the sun's shoes.
Yeah, or just be an avatar, like just be a little, floating above Long Beach.
Above the cosmos.
Yeah. I know it sounds really weird, but just to broaden our minds, because we are so programmed. And that Necker cube, why I love it is because you experience our brain seeing we just think, oh, this is reality, and we're really attached to it, and we can't see it any other way. But we actually have an experience with that Necker cube of our brain is seeing it two different ways. It's amazing. Okay, but I'm going to move on. This is the trickiest bit, really. Everything else is plain sailing from here. So another way, kind of abstraction, is when you abstract from something. And the series I do, Abstract the News, is all abstracted from newspaper photographs, which I will get to. But I'm just going to show you some. This is Art Brendan. Art is a local artist, and he's a big mover and shaker in the Metchosin Art and Cultural Center, where ArtPod is located. This is a piece called Water Circle, Red and Blue Composition. And he's got all his work in the hallway that leads into ArtPod. And why I'm saying this is abstracted from, this is a homage to Walter Dexter, who was a potter and a teacher that Art had. And so this is all to do, if any of you have done pottery, you know how much like water is a big part of it, the red glaze, and especially Walter Dexter's glazes were beautiful, rich red. So Art abstracted from his memories of that, his honoring that, all the water and the colorful glazes that he remembers from it. This is Arlene Slavin. This is called Off the Grid number 6, and this is a kind of abstraction. But when you read more into her, what she's doing is she's trying to, she abstracts from quilts, crafts, domestic women's the things women do, patterns, tiles, mosaics, things in the world that are not considered high art, not considered as valuable. So she's sort of elevating it and making it art and giving it value where some people have not given it the value it deserves. And I'm just putting a little piece of mine in there, just so you know, I'm abstracting from a photograph, and I'll get back to that later. So those are the three different kinds of ways of looking at abstraction. The conventional way, what it's not real, you know, it's not realistic, it's not objective. A different way of looking at it as though yes, it is real, but it's real in a different way. It might be lines, it might be swashes of red, it might be shapes, but just because it doesn't look like something else doesn't mean it's not real. And then this one, that is art that's abstracted from something. So it doesn't look like the thing it's abstracted from, but there's a lineage, like you can connect the dots to it. So I called this talk the powers of abstraction, because art can have real power to us. It can affect us. And so I'm just going to go through three ways. You know, there's probably many more. And if anybody can think of others, that would be great. But the ones I think is the first one, which is probably the most common one: aesthetic pleasure, delight. You feel inspired and glad to be alive just by seeing this. And I've got a local example. This is Patrice Snopkowski. It's called Light Form number 3. I don't know if Patrice is here, but it's a photograph. And the reason I put a photograph in here is because photographs sometimes aren't seen as high art as much as they should. I just think this is gorgeous. It's abstract. I happen to know what it is of and how Patrice took it, or the series that she did, which she says in her artist statements, but I don't think you need to know that. I think it's just so beautiful by itself. So that's the first one. And a second one, power of abstraction. One is how abstract art can disrupt, reframe what is beautiful or has value, which again, I think is really important for our brain. So you say, oh, well, that's beautiful. Okay, so that must be not beautiful. So we always elevate some things and then denigrate some others, which I think is really harmful overall. So a lot of abstract art is like messy, scribbly, drippy, scrolly, decaying, old, ugly, and dirty. So this is a photograph. I took this photograph. I'm sure there's lots of people here who love rusty metal like I do. I just think that's, rusty metal is just so beautiful. And here's a piece by Gunter Ludwig called Portugal. I have no idea why it's called Portugal. It's acrylic, asphalt, charcoal on paper, I think, or I'm not sure what it's on. So it's just like scribbles and drips and things like that. I think it's lovely. I mean, I'm not going to go into why at the moment, but just this person is presenting this. It's so not what's classic beauty. And the master of the messy, scribbly, drippy is Cy Twombly. And this, I just wanted to show you an exhibition view of 3 of his works, because you just see how huge it is. And it's like red scrolls or blue circles. And I could just live with these for a long, long time and not get bored with them. But they have so much spontaneity and looseness and movement. But basically they're all things, they're not sort of pretty, they're not carefully done. They contest sort of what beauty is supposed to be. So that's the second power of abstraction, I think. And then a third is, so when I titled this talk, The Power and the Puzzle of Abstraction, I was mostly referring to how it's just, abstraction can be just an annoying puzzle to somebody, very frustrating. But there's also a way that art can be a puzzle in such a way that you're invited in. Like how many people here, I wonder, do Wordle, jigsaws, you read murder mysteries. We love a puzzle, right? So I'm just going to show you, this is a piece by Alison Taylor. She's part of ArtPod, actually. I love her work. And this is pastel on paper. And it's called Squabble. And at first, you know, I look at this and oh, there's a lot going on. And I don't really know what's going on. But when I start to look more carefully, I can see 4 little birds in there. And then I sort of, oh, and it's called Squabble. These are like, well, so like breadcrumbs. It's like clues. The artist is giving me clues, both in the title, and I see these little birds in there. So then I think, oh, you know, like all those birds when they come into some, you know, there's some food and they're squabbling and there's feathers flying all over the place and there's squawking and everything. And I get a sense of that from this piece. But the whole point is that sometimes art can be like, it can engage you in certain ways. It doesn't give you everything. It doesn't tell you what everything is right off the bat. It gives you something to do. There's a bit of a puzzle or a mystery there. And
so Diana, on this, are you finished on the mystery puzzle, or are you going to say more?
Yeah.
Do you, in your own experience, have relationships or responses to a piece of art where all of those powers might be touching you at the same time with one piece of art?
Yeah. Oh, yes, definitely. And I think they can build on each other. Because mystery and, you know, can be so beautiful, like just awe. Maybe I'll go, what I'm going to do now is talk about my my series that I'm doing. So some, you know, there might be those in there. Like one of the, I'm thinking of text, how text sometimes is a mystery, like it's obscure, but it can be beautiful, just how it's just looking like text, even if you can't read it. I think that's what it's called, a scribic writing, where it looks like writing, but you can't read it. It's beautiful. And it's also going against what you're just disrupting it, because it's writing that you can't read. So that's three things, right? It can be beautiful, mysterious, and it's not what writing is supposed to be. You're supposed to be able to read writing, you know. So that might be an example of where all these three things can be together in one piece, for sure. Shall I go? Can I?
Please, yes.
So thank you for saying that, you know, it's helpful what you're doing. So in 2018, I was reading, like I read the newspaper every day, and I came across a photograph that just broke my heart. And I mean, this happens, but one particularly broke my heart. And, you know, so I was saying, well, so the question to myself is, how can you live in the world knowing about all the pain and suffering in the world and function in the world? And so this is where this started from. And so what I did is I've gathered some very impactful photographs, and I've made abstract work from them. And it's a way to both distance myself from the actual pain and the suffering that is depicted in the photograph, but at the same time stay with it, and not just the next day, you know, recycle the newspaper and come, you know, see the next one the next day. You know, it's to stay with it in a way, but still give me a little bit of emotional distance from it. So this was the whole point of what I was doing. And I had 3 criteria to judge the work that I'm doing, like if it was successful. One is, did the work that I did work as a piece of art on its own? Was it engaging? Was it interesting? Was it any of the things we talked about? Did it give you aesthetic pleasure? Was it disruptive in any way? Just does it engage you in any way? The second one, did it refer to the photograph, because it was abstracted from that. The whole point was it have some reference, but I didn't want it to be certainly didn't want to copy it or it to be derivative, but I didn't want it to have absolutely nothing to do with it, because what's the point? And then the third thing was, because with every photograph in the newspaper, there is a newspaper article. So there's text. So I wanted text to be part of each piece I did. And that's how we have the show subtext, where we have 25 different artists figuring out ways to put text and art together. But anyway, I wanted the text to be there so that it wasn't gratuitous, that it actually deepened the work rather than just, oh, it has to have text, so I'll throw a word on it. Definitely not that. So I'm not going to show you, there's 12 pieces in the show. And I've just got 8 here, and I'm not even going to go into all of them, but I just want to talk about a few of them. So, I know, before I was going to do that, I was going to just mention that there's a lot of artists that work with newspapers. For instance, this is Sho Shibuya, and he takes the front page of actually the New York Times and paints it. And I just think, like, for instance, if you look on the bottom row in the middle, he's just painted it beige, and then he's just cut out a little triangle, and then he's put like a Q-tip up that triangle, like it's like a nose. So I think he's saying something about COVID testing. I mean, if you look at each one of those, they're brilliant, but in such a economy of line or whatever. And this, the one on the far right, I thought, that's oil. Like, it's beige with these drips of black, but actually it was Giuliani, if you remember, the Trump's lawyer, who sweated and his hair dye went down his face. Anyway, there's other people that do art. This is Alexandra Bell. This piece is called A Teenager with Promise, and what she's commenting on is the racism that is propounded or compounded in the media. So she's sort of taken the newspaper but then changed it, and this is about I can't remember. I'd have to look who it is about. I can't remember offhand. But these are big posters in New York, in the streets of New York, to comment on that. And this is a piece by Edward Brzezinski. I don't know if you know him. Brilliant. He goes up in airplanes usually and takes these huge photographs of all these industrial sites, and they're beautiful abstract pieces. So he takes reality, but he abstracts them, and then you figure out after a while what it is. Now this piece is, you think, maybe he's photoshopped it, but no, he hasn't. This is nickel tailings in Sudbury, Ontario in 1996. This is exactly the color of the river there. Mm-hmm. But I mean, in some ways it looks very beautiful, but then you figure out what it is. So these are people that are working from real life, and they're working with newspapers. So this is just to situate what I'm just doing another version of that kind of thing. So this is a piece that is, if you were at the opening, our Zoom opening, you might have seen this in the background. It's called Walk in My Shoes, 751, 298, and 182. And those they refer to, like, 751 is the residential schools, the unmarked graves, the number of people, bodies that were found in unmarked graves. That's in Saskatchewan. The middle one is in Fort Providence, Northwest Territories, and the one on the right is near Cranbrook. So the former residential schools. So this piece was up, and I'm going to show you. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you the work that I did, and then I'll show you the actual photograph that I took the work from. Anyway, I was working in the gallery when this piece, somebody was looking at the work. So I went up and chatted with her, and she pointed at this one and she says, "Those are colonial colors." And I thought, well, she is right. Wow. And so we chatted a bit more, and she said Native people would relate more to that if it was black and red. So we chatted some more, and I said, well, I'm even uncomfortable doing something this, like I don't want to fetishize somebody else's pain around this. And she gave me the impression that it was okay to do it, but she just wanted me to know this. So, and now if somebody had said to me, well, I like what you did, but I would prefer it in green, I'm not going to yank it off the wall and paint it green. But I actually did yank this off the wall after the weekend, and then I changed it. I put another layer on it, and this is the piece that's up there now.
So Diane, I'm just going to pause for a little sec and just ask people to pay attention to what your response was when you saw the shift from the first picture to the second one. Going back to what Diana says about, the images, are they disrupting for you? Do they inspire you in some way? Not necessarily in a pleasant way, or perhaps I'm not making an assumption.
And look, I mean, this is she was so right on, like pink and blue. We just think of, oh, it's innocent, innocent colors, children. But not everybody sees it like that. It was just such a gift that she gave me. It was just brilliant. And of course, I'm not going to cover it over completely. That's reality. Like there is pink and blue. When you go out and buy shoes, what's on offer for children's shoes? It's pink and blue often. But I thought that was I just so appreciated what she said. Anyway, I think this is a stronger piece. And if ever she saw it again, I would hope she would think so too. And I'm going to show you the photograph. It's by Marion Thibault, and the article is "Indigenous People Need Allies as We Keep Fighting for a Seat at the Table." And I just want to say something about the photographs I'm going to show you. They are art. They are so beautiful in every way. And one of the ethics around what I'm doing, I think a lot about that. And so one way I've not got around it, but I'm honoring that, is the work is for sale, but all the proceeds from any of the work that I sell is going to Reporters Without Borders, which is a group that because reporters and photojournalists do so much. I mean, they do wonderful work, but it's so courageous. I think there's been 5 people killed in the war in Ukraine so far. I mean, I looked at the site a little while ago. 5 journalists or photojournalists killed in the war, just because getting us the news, which is so important. So I just wanted to make that point. This is a piece I showed at the opening, and so I won't go into it very much. But one thing I just want to point out is how you can make, when I was talking about disrupting work, how things can be disruptive. I've called this "Life is Not Always a Beach." So life is a beach. So, that's a night, you think of playful, good times, there's sand there. But I've tried to sort of queer it, make it a little bit more ominous than that. Life is not always a beach. And so those curvy things that you see, are they Ferris wheels or is it barbed wire? Like, I'm hoping to make it, I didn't do it very consciously, but what I hope is that there's some it's suggesting a beach with the colorful little beach huts there, but at the same time, there's something a bit ominous about it as well. So there's more dissonance or disruption there. And I'm going to just show you.
Before you go on, I was just going to say again, to invite people to, before Diana does the explanation of what's the news piece from which she drew this inspiration, feel free to put some of your own quick reactions into the chat, just so that we're as appreciators of your art able to give you some feedback on how people are actually responding. So if people have, just one or two words, the chat's here. Okay, Diana.
Yeah, and the reason I talked about this piece at the opening is because I'm a savage critic of my own work, believe me. I'm trying not to be like that tonight, but this was a piece that I thought it did fulfill the three things I was talking about. I think it works on its own. When you see the photograph, you'll see there is some connection to it. So I might as well go to that.
The barbed wire makes me look at the buildings like bunkers or barracks.
Yeah.
It's so alive, but a bit haunting. I'm giving you what people think. This called to mind a refugee camp.
Yeah, and the text, well, I'll show you what this is the image by Warwick Page, and it's the article is "The Plight of Syria's White Helmet Evacuees Worsens as They Wait on Canada," newly released documents show. So it's a refugee camp in Jordan. But what in the text that I put in, I found some interviews with children. They'd installed a playground in a refugee camp, and these were interviews with children. So some of the things they said, and they were some of the things that children in any, were enjoying the playground, but they also had quite difficult pasts and experiences. So it's their words. You can't particularly read them. That doesn't matter so much, but it's on colorful tissue paper and an image transfer, and put in those little huts to get, because they're individuals and they're still trying to have a good life, and even in this refugee camp.
So in this case, it's not so much the content of the words, but that you're representing each of those individuals.
Yeah.
Within the image of the.
And when I use text, it's rarely it's the text. What it actually says is not so important as what it suggests, really.
Yeah.
What arms can do. So this is the title of this piece, and the text here. So much are arms to endure comes from. You wouldn't see that exactly in the article, but I've taken it out and I've made a different meaning of it, if you like. So I think what you do, what arms can do, so much are arms to endure. You think of arms, holding you or whatever, but actually, when you go to the photograph and the article is about canceling our Saudi arms deal. Canceling our Saudi arms deal would merely be a feel-good measure. It's all about the arms that Canada sells to Saudi Arabia that then go and kill people in Yemen. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you can see this, there's the part where I abstracted from was some of the ruins of the house of this building. And I just love. Sorry.
It strikes me as a really strong example in terms of text about how the ambiguity of arms, the word arms, can suggest so much that's contradictory.
Absolutely. And our language is so rich like that, and going back to humor and cartoons, a lot of humor is about, how we think words, what word means, but they have double meanings, triple meanings sometimes. So again, don't be like him. This is 12 by 12, 3 12 by 12s, cold wax and oil on panel. And I'm just going to show you this is the photograph that I was working from. It's by Mark Cristino. By the way, some of these photographers, I actually I've corresponded with them because I was about copyright and things like that. And the ones I've talked to, they said, yeah, just go for it. Like, I've told them what I'm doing, and I just got their blessing so far, which is really nice. Anyway, this is about thousands dead, the Philippine president, the death squad allegations, and a brutal drugs war. So it's all about how the death squads go and just kill people willy-nilly. And the title comes from, it's a person that was in the death squad actually confessed and started telling people what it was like. So the don't be like him is be like him in terms of stop what you're doing even at some point and confess, but don't be like him. Don't be in a death squad.
Mm-hmm. So I'm just going to slow you down 1 minute and suggest you go back to the painting. Yeah, to allow people to comment if they want.
And the text in here is in Tagalog. It's some of the things that this person said. And again, you can sort of, most people wouldn't understand the language, so it would be obscure. But it's some of his words are embedded in the piece.
Mm-hmm. And from the last one, I'm just taking you back a little bit, Diana, because you're not seeing the chat. From the our arms one, the comment in the chat is, what our arms do is so powerful. Love this juxtaposition. Thousands dead, very disturbing and interesting. Thank you.
And I was going back to the messy, scribbly, scrolly. This is my style, is to be very messy. Anybody that uses cold wax, the main tool you use is a bowl scraper, a silicone bowl scraper. You don't use brushes or things like that. So you can't do anything really very fine. But I like that. The messiness of life. I like the looseness that it helps you be loose in what you do. So that's just a art technique thrown in. So that's the photograph. But the photographs are so gorgeous, just so gorgeous. And I don't know if you up the top middle, that is a police officer's arm there, who's in the middle of a raid. This piece is Life Can Be So Colorful. Life can be so colorful. Again, this is an ironic. It's the words from the article. And I think it is quite colorful. But I'll just show you the photograph. It's by Nathan Vanderclip, and it's inside China's campaign against the Uyghurs. And I'm just going to go back. And the text that I put in, it's a photocopy of a notice that's plastered on apartments that tells people they have to have an in-house interview. They're required to have an interview.
This would be put on the doors of Uyghurs. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, of some residences. And the photograph is actually a mosque that's been, you're not allowed to go there. Although there's so much intimidation, even if the mosques are open, people are too scared to go there because there's surveillance cameras and things like that. This Marielle Presente, I'm going to show you the photograph and then I'll come back here because what does it refer to? If you look in the top left-hand corner, up in that, where all the electrical wires. This is a favela in Rio de Janeiro. And the article's called Farewell to Brazil, Country of Broken Dreams. It's by Stephanie Nolan. So the background here is all those electrical wires. But when you read the story, in it, there's it talks about one of the people it talks about is Marielle Franco, who was a queer Black counselor, and she was assassinated by the police. She was, I think, about 38 years old when that happened. She was an activist. She grew up in the slums and she was so effective. And one of her signature statements when she'd show up somewhere was Marielle Presente, like, I'm here. And after her death, there were like thousands and thousands and thousands of people in the streets of Rio de Janeiro commemorating her, protesting her killing, actually. And it was very quiet. And occasionally somebody would say, Marielle Presente, which, you know, I just thought was so beautiful. So what I'm trying to do here is make her present. I've cut out the letters because like she was cut out. And then I photocopied the story of her assassination onto tissue paper and then backed it onto those letters. And the tissue paper is not archival, so it will fade over time, as you know, her memory will fade, but it's still, she's still going to be present, in my opinion. I mean, I just wanted her to be present. It was just so tragic that she was killed. So that's that piece.
It strikes me as such a very powerful honoring, and the carefulness with which you thought about how to handle the letters and the fading and the passage of time.
Thank you. Do what you can. Oh, this is this one. This is the last one. Hope everybody's hanging in okay. I'm going to show you the photograph before I show you the work. It's by Veronique de Vigerie. This is the photo. Oh, it's about Yemen, the hidden war, which has been going on since 2014. And this is the photograph that this is the first photo. I mean, this just broke my heart. I just think it is so sad. And it's not only the child in the plastic bag in the front, but it's that the child behind is the child looking at the infant, is the child looking at the camera person, is the child looking at us. I mean, and Veronique, who did this, I mean, she won awards for this, but it's so, you know, just looking at us and saying, is this okay? You know, really. Anyway, so, and you can see how, I don't know if you can see how creased up the, you know, because I've been handling this since 2018. Anyway, so I did two pieces, but I'm just going to show you one. This is one piece I did. It's 6 12 by 12 cold wax and oil pieces. And I'll just show you, I'm just going to show you behind that little boy's, I think it's a little boy, the lights of the city. That's what I'm using here. I was abstracting from that for this piece. And when I finished this is the piece I did last. When I finished this, it didn't have any text. I thought, oh, well, what am I going to use for text? What would work here? And I went back to what I started from and what started this whole series for me. How do you live with the suffering of the world? And so what I did, I went to my guru, which is Google, and I typed in, how do you live with the suffering of the world? And I got 391 million responses in 0.69 seconds. And I found just the perfect response. It's 4 lines of text, and you can't see it here, but if you look at it carefully, and in reality, it's in all the dark blue. I've actually written these 4 lines in there. And Deirdre, who is here, has bought one of these triptychs, and so she can see it. And so what the 4 lines was you do what you can with what you've been given from the place where you are with the time that you have. And this was what Nkosi Johnson said. And he was from South Africa. He was an advocate for children with HIV/AIDS. And boy, did he do a lot. He founded a refuge for mothers with HIV/AIDS children. And he was a keynote speaker at the AIDS conference. He's inspired songs and poems. Anyway, he was 12 when he died. So that was the time that he had. So with the time that you have, that's what he did a lot. And that is Metchosin. So
Wow.
I just thought this is what he did. I mean, boy, did he do a lot in his 12 years. But I just think for all of us, it's, you do what you can with what you've got from where you are with the time you have, no matter what it is.
Somebody, Diana, says this reminds me of Ben Shahn. I don't know who that artist is. Maybe you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't bring his image. I know the artist, but I can't bring his.
And then another person is thanking you and saying how thoughtful your work is.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that you're Googling that question and ending up with these words. There was almost something karmic in that probably happened.
Oh, it was wonderful. Yeah. Anyway, I mean, I sort of want to pause. I mean, I've just got 3 little slides just to wrap up, but it's sort of hard to go from this to the others, but I'm just going to go on. So I just wanted to summarize what I was talking about in terms of abstraction. You can look at it as what it isn't, but I think a better way to look at abstraction is what it actually is, but just looking at it a different way. You're not comparing it to something else. You're just seeing it for what it is. And you can also abstract from something else, from events, from memories, from landscape. And the powers that, the effect that it can have is that it gives aesthetic pleasure. It can be disruptive. And it can show us a different way of looking. And it can do that by presenting a puzzle, but a puzzle that's not so much frustrating as a way that you want to engage with it. And I just threw these things together, like, what I do to help me, because things are always a puzzle. So much is a puzzle to me. What you can do is, read, watch, listen, look at art widely, subscribe to newsletters, listen to podcasts, listen to and read the word of artists, but also not just do things, but you could say not be cynical, be open-hearted and open-minded, curious and think critically, and be capable of being moved and delighted. And, you just get so much out of art, I think. Oh, and one of the things I forgot to say earlier, it just reminds me, abstract art in visually, I mean, every art form deals with this different way of looking at reality. And but just use the different vocabulary. So for instance, in theater, there's something called the fourth wall, which is that invisible wall between the stage and the audience. And occasionally one of the strategies, an actor will come out of character and they'll speak to the audience about what's going on. And it's a way to pierce that make-believe world that we're in. And it's a way of looking, participating in the theater in a different way. It's like, oh, I am here. The actors know I'm here. They're actors. We're not in a 18th century dining room in Russia or something like that. It's a way to look at reality differently. And every art form has that, like whether it's poetry or music, whatever.
So I think, Diana, we should move on to some questions,
Yes.
if you're ready.
Yes.
I just, before we go, want to point to 2 other things in the chat box. One person saying, I think abstraction forces or encourages, to say it more softly, to let go. And another person saying that love that you use many local artists as examples throughout, which I appreciate too. And I just want to say, as we move into the question period, that as somebody who actually didn't know a lot about abstract art at the beginning of this, I will never look at abstract art in the same way again, Diana. So what a gift. Thank you. So